You're on Haman Aleph, 5a at Toshma. I think it's the number 12 in the art scroll notes. Footnote 12. First one line is Ma'arala. Okay, again, sort of a summary for the past couple of days. Again, the Mishnah says somebody who brings a divorce outside of Israel needs to say b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam. The Mishnah is not clear why exactly this is necessary. And the Gemara has debate between Rabbah and Rava. According to Rabbah, the reason is that outside of Israel, people do not know the rules of Lishma. And therefore, when they say b'fanei nechta, you ask them if the document was written Lishma, and if they respond yes, the document is considered. We know that the document has now been written for the purposes of the specific divorce in question. Lishma means a specific man and a specific woman. Now, and according to Rava, the reason of this is because of Mitsuyan Lakaimai, because the witnesses have to be able to, because the document needs to be notarized, as it were, and saying if the messenger says that verifies the documents. Now, the Gemara previously pointed out that Rabbah Islay de Rava. That means that Rabbah's opinion of Lishma, Rabbah actually agrees with the opinion of Rava, that you also need to have witnesses to verify the signatures. And therefore, so the difference between Rabbah and Rava would be in a scenario, do you also need to have Lishma? Let's say you bring a divorce inside a city outside of Israel. So divorce is brought from the southwest Portland to northwest Portland. So if the reason is Lishma, then you can give you need to say b'fanei nechtam. However, if the reason is just because the verification of the signature is because the signatures are easily verifiable because it's been transported locally, so therefore it is not necessary to say b'fanei nechtam. Furthermore, we saw yesterday that actually what happened was eventually everybody learned all the rules of Lishma, and there was no concern anymore with Lishma. However, the decree was kept in place in case at some point in time people would forget the rules and they'd forget the idea that a divorce needs to be written Lishma. However, the rabbis made certain exceptions for uncommon scenarios. Now, today is sort of a continuation of a similar discussion. Okay. Okay. Yesterday we spoke about the fact that if you had the divorce was sent through a normal person who became deaf, mute, and deranged, psychotic, it is not necessary for him to say b'fanei nechtam. And the reason, and instead, what's done is the document is verified, and the reason for this is because everybody knows the rules. And the idea of b'fanei nechtam is just saying b'fanei nechtam. I witness the writing and signing the document. That's just a way to. That is just a way. That is just a rabbinical enactment. So in case things go back to the old days when nobody knew the rules of Lishma, we would have a way of verifying the Lishma of the document. Because it's sort of just an extra precaution. If the guy can't say b'fanei nechtam because he's not he's not present, he's psychotic. So therefore, we're going to be lenient. The Gemara asked, if any scenario that's uncommon, we're going to be lenient when you have a scenario that the woman serves as her own messenger. So typically, if the husband gives his wife a divorce, then his wife is divorced. But it is possible for a husband to make his wife a messenger to send a divorce, for her to carry her divorce to a specific location and give herself the divorce at that location. This is obviously an unusual arrangement, and this unusual arrangement should be exempt because it's unusual. It should be exempt from the laws of saying b'fanei nechtam. The woman should not have to say she was present for the reading and the writing and the signing of the document. So Gemara says no. We want to treat all messengers the same. So even though this is an unusual type of messenger, the woman is serving as a messenger for herself. Despite that, we consider the rabbi still required her to say b'fanei nechtam or b'fanei nechtam. Okay, Toshma. It's never up to speed. Next Gemara is relatively similar to what we just spoke out. The boy mine Shmuel me Rafuna. Shmuel had the following question from Rafuna. Shnayim sheheviu get Medina Sayam. You have two people that brought a divorce from outside Israel. Tzrichim sheyomer b'fanenu nechtav u'b'fanenu nechtam. Ein tzrichim. So Shmuel had the following question from Rafuna. If two people bring a divorce from outside Israel, do they need to say b'fanenu nechtav or not? So he said, Ein tzrichim. If two people are carrying the document, it's not. So the question is, two people are obviously different than one messenger. Two people don't need to say b'fanenu nechtav. Let's say the two people say, we witnessed the divorce. Obviously, the husband is not believed to say that I never divorced my wife. If there are two witnesses testifying, there was divorce. So therefore, since there's two witnesses that serve as the messenger, there's no need to validate the document by saying b'fanenu nechtam, because the witnesses are always around to say we saw the divorce. So the Rava Nicha, according to Rava, this makes sense because the reason of the enactment is because of verifying the document. These two witnesses are always around to verify it. However, the Rabba Kasha, according to Rabba, we still need to know the document was written l'shma. So why don't we require them to say b'fanenu nechtam? Gemara says we're talking about a scenario where everybody knows the rules and the document was written l'shma. So Gemara asks, if that's the case, chad nami. So then, even if there was a single witness, why does he need to say b'fanenu nechtam if everybody knows the rules of l'shma? The Gemara says, because we're concerned the rabbis kept the decree active, even though everybody learned the rule, just in case things would change for the worse to go back to the time where they did not know the rule. So the Gemara says, okay, if that's the case, so then two people also, why are two people exempt from the rule? If the rule remains in position, even though technically speaking, the reason for the rule is not relevant, why does it then? Why in a scenario of two people is the law any different? If there are two messengers, they should also have to say b'fanenu nechtam because the rule is still valid.
Rabbi, page position, please.
Page position is about 2/3 down the page of 5a, and we're on. The word is nami is the first word in the line. And the next word is we were holding Beitrei de Ma'aseh Gita Milsa L'Shchicha. For two people to carry a divorce is unusual. And that's not included in the rabbinical enactment. In other words, this decree that we keep the old decree valid, even though it's not necessary, is not said in terms of unusual circumstance. And two people carrying a divorce is an unusual circumstance. So the Gemara asks, like before, if a woman serves as a messenger, in other words, not that the woman is bringing her own divorce, but she's the messenger to bring her own divorce to a specific location, and then to give it to herself and validate her divorce, execute her divorce. And she still needs to say b'fanenu nechtam, even though this is an unusual situation. So the Gemara says, so that you don't confuse different types of messengers. They said all messengers need to say b'fanenu nechtam and b'fanenu nechtam. I witnessed the writing and the signing of the document. Okay, if that's the case, we're not differentiating different types of messengers. Balnami, the husband as well. That if the husband brings his divorce, he does not need to say b'fanenu nechtam. Why not? If all messengers are the same. The Gemara says because you're missing the point. The reason why the rabbi said b'fanenu nechtam is necessary is because maybe the husband will come and invalidate the documents. Does it make sense that he would be the one giving the divorce, and then he claimed that the divorce wasn't valid? Obviously, such a concern is preposterous, and therefore, if the husband brings a divorce, we're not concerned that we don't. It's not a problem to differentiate the husband from other types of messengers, because the husband is sort of the purpose for the whole decree, and if he brings a divorce, there's no purpose to the decree. Therefore, there's no need to say b'fanenu nechtam. Okay. So we are 2 lines above the wide lines. First word is kama arala, and now we're holding Ko is the first word in the line, and we're holding Toshma. Okay, next attempt. The Gemara here, so remember, Rabbi started off saying the reason to say Fananechtam is because of Lishma. The Gemara eventually had to come on to 2 major limitations in terms of forgery. And secondly, Rabbi actually agrees that at a later point in time, his decree no longer became necessary, but they kept it anyway. So we're still not done with Rabbi. The Gemara wants to eliminate Rabbi completely. Tashma, Hamevi get Medina Sayam. Somebody brings a divorce from outside of Israel, the Nelson law, and he gives her the divorce. And he did not say b'fanei. So he should have said it, he didn't say it. If the document was validated through the regular process of signature validation, was notarized, kosher, the divorce is kosher. And if not, puzzle, it's not kosher. Hold on. The Bryce explains itself. The reason to say b'fanei is not to be machmer in case it didn't happen, but actually it's the opposite. It's to be lenient. What does that mean? In other words, typically to verify a document, you need 2 witnesses. You need a court. We'll soon see, according to one opinion, you don't even need a court in this case. But the reason to say b'fanei is to be lenient, not to be stringent. Now hold on. L'Rava, according to Rava's opinion, this makes sense. In other words, the purpose of fanei is to validate the document against forgeries, and therefore, if the guy did not say b'fanei, however, the document was still validated by some other means. Happens to be there were people that knew their signatures and they recognized them and they testified. So then, okay, fine. So what's the problem? According to Rava, the concern was it's a forged document, and now it's validated by witnesses. Even if the messenger didn't validate the document, somebody else did the job. So we say that b'fanei is not a chumrah. We're not trying to make things more difficult. We're trying to make things easier. So he had an easier option. Have the messenger say b'fanei. He didn't say it. Okay, so now you have to deal with the more difficult way, which is actually find people that recognize the signatures. But if he did that, we don't say, well, oh, you didn't say b'fanei, so the divorce is not valid. We say, no, you did an alternative, a valid alternative. You verified it the proper way. It's a validated document, and now she's able to remarry. That makes a lot of sense. However, according to Rabba's opinion, the reason here is to determine the document was written l'shma. Even if the signatures are accurate, it doesn't tell us that the Bezdin, the court that wrote the document, knew the rule of l'shma. So therefore, back to the original question, which is, this does not make sense. According to Rabba, this should not be necessary. According to Rabba, the fanei is a chumrah. It is required, because otherwise we don't know the document was written l'shma. So the Gemara says, we're talking about where everybody knows the rules. Okay. But you told me that even though everybody knows the rules, we still kept the decree. So you still need to say fanei. Gemara say we're talking about a scenario here, a post hoc scenario where she already remarried. The reason here is not because in general, b'fanei nechtav is not a chumrah. It actually is a chumrah. We do require you to say b'fanei nechtav. It's just in a scenario where she remarried that we're lenient. The reason here is because it's a post hoc justification. Because she's remarried, but you tell her kids are not kosher. The reason here is because she remarried and we're in a compromised situation. That's what we're lenient. Gemara says you're right. This is what we mean to say. And if you'll tell me because b'fanei nechtav was not said, maybe we should require her to get divorced, to leave. So for that, I'll tell you, to the extent that we won't require her to leave her second marriage, we do not require b'fanei nechtav to be said. But obviously, standalone, if she's not remarried, we do require a b'fanei nechtav. B'fanei nechtav, we're only lenient here because she's already remarried. And the reason for this is why don't we require her to leave the marriage? Why did the rabbis require you to testify to the lishma status? Because maybe the husband will come and claim that the document was not written lishma. In this scenario, the husband is not going to make that claim. Why? Because everybody knows the rules. If everybody knows the rules, the husband won't come and make the claim that the document wasn't written lishma. So therefore, we, the Bezdin, won't serve as the ones to make up an argument, as if we're the husband making up a non-existent argument. In other words, the argument of the husband to invalidate divorce would be the document wasn't written lishma. However, in this scenario, he cannot make that argument because everybody knows the rules of lishma. So if everybody knows the rules, how can he claim that nobody knows the rules? Doesn't make sense. Now, it would make sense if there were courts that did not know the rules of lishma. We don't want such an event to happen. So therefore, the court would say, pretend the husband is here saying it's not lishma. What are you going to do about it? That's really the question.
So
However,
is he claiming this because he himself doesn't know the rules, or he's trying to pull one over?
he's trying to pull it
That's
over.
right.
Yeah.
Want to give him the benefit. That's why I asked.
Yeah. Now, he's trying to basically mess up his wife.
No,
Now, in this scenario, because the husband's argument is theoretical at best, right? Because the whole reason for the decree is maybe things will change, but at the present moment in time, there is no reason for the decree. So the court will not act like the husband, pretending the document is invalid, because maybe the husband will come if the husband can't come and she's already remarried. In that sense, we say b'fanei nechtav, we're not going to be machmer if b'fanei nechtav was not said. Okay. Now the Gemara has one more attempt actually. Okay, so the Gemara says, "Beplukta Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Shimon Levi." This debate between Rabba and Rava is also a similar debate between Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Shimon Levi. And they debated the exact same question. One of them said the reason is because of Lishma. And the other one said because the witnesses are not around to testify as to the validity of the document, i.e. that the document is not forged. Okay, so the Gemara says to Stayim, let's try to prove. In other words, Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Yeshua. One said like Rabba, one said like Rava. Who said which? To Stayim, let's try to prove Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who the Amar of the Fishain Bekin Lashma. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was the one that said the concern here is Lashma, like Rabba. Why? The Rabbi Shimon ben Bar Abba, I see Gita like Hamed Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Shimon bar Abba brings a divorce in front of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Amar Lei, he says to him, I lie. Do I need to testify that I witnessed the writing and signing of the document or not? Amar Leis, he says to him, it's not necessary. Loy Amru, it's only they only said this rule of in the earlier generations, they did not know that a divorce had to be written for the purposes of this specific divorce going on. But in later generations, where everybody knows the divorce has to be written for the specific man and the specific woman, Loy, it's not necessary. So the Gemara says clearly here the concern of Rabbi Shimon Levi is Lishma. This is a clear proof that Rabbi Shimon Levi agrees with the opinion of Rabba. Okay. He also, by the way, disagrees with the Gemara's resolutions, because the Gemara was trying to say that the decree was enacted on a longer term basis. When Rabbi Shimon Levi, it was only a temporary decree. And then eventually the decree was disbanded. So the Gemara asks, Rabba isle de Rava. Rabba agrees to Rava. First of all, in other words, the Fanei should be necessary because you need to verify the document is not forged, and Rabba agrees to Rava. And furthermore, Rava actually acknowledged that the decree was in effect for a longer term basis. It wasn't that it was stopped at some point. Okay, so the Gemara says, "El Reb Shimon bar Abba inish achrona hava badei." In this situation, actually, there were two people carrying the divorce. There was Reb Shimon bar Abba, and there was another person with him. Now, because there were two people, it's actually not necessary to say according to Rava. First of all, because when two people carry a divorce, that's unusual, and therefore the decree is not valid. One is not required to say because of the Lashma reason. And in terms of validation of the signatures, to make sure the document isn't a forgery, it also isn't necessary because the two witnesses are present. They can always verify the document. Now, it is clear though that he goes now with the Gemara's version of Rabbah. In other words, Rabbi Shimon Levi does fit with the Gemara's version of Rabbah. That number one, the decree is active, and Rabbah is Liderov. Rabbah is also concerned for the argument of Rava that the document needs to be verified against forgeries. Okay. Right, and the reason why this compatriot of Shimon bar Abba was not mentioned was because of the honor of Reb Shimon. So there's the great scholar of Shimon along with some random guy. So the random guy wasn't mentioned. We only spoke about the rabbi, but it wasn't like there wasn't somebody else there. There was, you just didn't talk about him. Okay. Next attempt. Itmar, we learned. So the messenger provides the woman with divorce and makes a statement of b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam. I've witnessed the writing and signing of the documents. So there's debate here. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina have a debate. Chad Amar, one says b'fnei shnayim, you give a divorce in front of two people. Chad Amar, and one says b'fnei shleisha, you give a divorce in front of three people. So the Gemara says, "Stayim." Let's say Rabbi Yochanan Amar b'fnei shnayim. Rabbi Yochanan only requires two people. How do we know this? Why would that make sense? The Rovin bar of Chizda, Rovin the son of Rav Chizda, brought a divorce to Rabbi Yochanan. And he says to him, "Zil hav leva apitray." Go give the divorce in front of two people. The Emel will tell them b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtam, and make a statement of b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. So the Gemara says to Stayim, this is a clear proof that Rabbi Yochanan requires two, and Rav Chanina requires three. Of course, what's the Gemara going to say? Let's say this debate between Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Chanina is dependent on this other debate between Rabbah and Rava that we just saw. One second. We are on Hayim Beis, and we're around halfway down the page. First word in line is Leiman b'hakam mifagi. Demand Amar b'fnei shnayim kasavar l'fishein b'kin l'shma. The opinion that says that the divorce has to be given in front of two people, he holds the reason is because of Lishma. And therefore, in order to verify the Lishma, all you need is two people. The one who says it needs to be done in front of three people, he holds the B'fanei nechtav statement is considered a verification of the document. And just like a typical document is verified in front of three people, so too, this B'fanei nechtav has to be done in front of three people. So the Gemara says, no, this doesn't make any sense. Because in the previous Gemara, we said a machlekes between Rabbi Shimon Levi and Rabbi Yochanan. If the reason is Lishma or Mitzvah L'Kaimai. What does Rabbi Shimon Levi say? Lishma. What does Rabbi Yochanan, and also Mitzvah L'Kaimai, because Rabbi is L'Rava. But what does Rabbi Yochanan say? Rabbi Yochanan says, a Mitzvah L'Kaimai, meaning the document has to be verified against potential forgeries. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan in the previous Gemara. Now we have the same Rabbi Yochanan saying that how many people do you need to give it in front of? Two. So you see clearly the one who holds the opinion of verification of the signatures holds you can use it suffices to give it in front of two people, and you don't require a court of three. So obviously this the Gemara's argument that these two debates are intrinsically linked is obviously incorrect. But Tizbar, does this make sense? Since Rabbi Shimon Levi says because they're not familiar with the rules of the Shua, Rabbi Yochanan is the one that says because they're not available to verify the signatures. So if that's the case, how could Rabbi Yehudah here say that it is done in front of two people? And moreover, Rabba is the Rava. Rabba agrees to Rava. One second. In other words, Rabbi Yehudah that holds the opinion of Mitzuyin L'Kaimai, how does he hold that it works in front of two witnesses? And moreover, Rabba is the Rava. Rabba that says the reason is Lishma also holds of Rava of Mitzuyin L'Kaimai. So if you require three people, then both opinions should say you require three, because Rabba is in addition to Rava. You need to verify the signatures and you need to testify about Lishma. So if Mitzuyin L'Kaimai, if the fact the verification of signatures needs three, because typically a verification of signatures needs three, certainly if you also need to testify on Lishma, you also need to have three. For reason number one alone, because you're verifying the signatures. So the Gemara acknowledges this. Everyone agrees that the witnesses have to be around to testify on the signatures. In our scenario, the question facing us is whether a shliach could become a witness and a witness could become a judge. This is the debate. In other words, if the shliach is testifying in front of two people, if the shliach can become a witness, in other words, he's testifying, and the witness can become a judge, now he joins three people. So you actually have a court of three. Alternatively, the witness cannot become a judge. And then the shliach cannot join the group of three. And then you need to have three people. The opinion of two, so in general, there's a big debate in terms of verification of the signatures. Let's say you have somebody comes with a document, the document basically says somebody owes me money, and he goes in front of a court of three, and they recognize the signatures. So Gemara says that if you hold Eid Nasadayan, that a witness can become a judge, what they do is the judges alternate testifying. So two judges testify about each signature, while the third judge is the judge, and then they all sit down together and they mull over their court case, and then they decide, obviously, to verify it, because at least two of the judges are the witnesses. And in the scenario of if you hold Eid Nasadayan, then this is permitted. Okay, one second. Okay. So Gemara asks, okay, so this is the debate. The debate is whether the shliach serves as a member of the court. Asks the Gemara of but don't we? Isn't the in the final resolution the matter settled that when we discuss a rabbinical issue like verification of signatures, which is rabbinical in nature, and the reason why is because biblically there is no concern somebody forges a document. Why is that? Because it takes a tremendous amount of chutzpah to be able to forge a document to claim it as authentic, and it's extremely uncommon that people will do that, and therefore, by majority, it's not a forged document. Now, because verifying the signatures is a rabbinical enactment, everybody agrees that Eid Nasadayin. If that's the case, why do you need to have three judges? The witness, the messenger, can join as a judge. The Gemara says you're right. The debate is something entirely different. The Marasavar, one opinion is, given the Ishik Sher Lahavias Aget, since a woman is kosher to bring a divorce, a woman can serve as a messenger. In other words, if we allow the messenger to combine with the judges, with two witnesses to make a court of three, then we're concerned that maybe one day a woman will bring a divorce and she will become a judge, even though a woman cannot be a judge. And the other opinion is everybody knows a woman can't be a judge, and they won't combine her with the courts to be a member of the courts. We have a Bryce here that supports the opinion of Rabbi Yehudah that requires only two witnesses. Maybe get Medina Siyam. somebody brings a divorce from outside of Israel, he gave the divorce to the woman and did not say the woman is not allowed to get remarried, and if she did get remarried, she needs to leave the marriage, and her children are mamzer. Differ mayor. Why is her mayor so stringent? We'll get to it in a moment. And the rabbis say, "Ain't a blood mamzer. The child is not a mamzer. What should you do? What happens is, let's say divorce was given and he did not say b'fanei you do is the woman gives her divorce back to the messenger, who gives it to her again and says, I witnessed the writing and signing of the documents. Do it over, exactly. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so the Gemara asks, why is your marriage so strict? Is that like because he forgot to say something that's such a significant grounds for her to have to leave the marriage and her children not to be kosher? Gemara says, yes, correct. Rameir goes according to his own reasoning. The Hamnuna said in the name of Ula, the reasoning of Rameir was as follows. If somebody changes from the coin, meaning the specific rules that the rabbis enacted with regard to Gittin, the divorce and the child is a mamzer. Now, the halacha does not follow Rameir in this context. However, the idea here is certainly the case. The idea is that we're extremely stringent with regard to Gittin. And we're going to try to do whatever we could to make sure that divorce is kosher according to every single opinion. Okay. Bar Hedya. Who is Bar Hedya? He's an interesting character. If you remember him, we discussed. He was the extensive. He got an extensive treatment in Mesechtas Brachas. He interpreted the dreams of Abai and Rava. He gave Abai a very favorable interpretation. Gave Rava a very unfavorable interpretation. Eventually, Rava found out and cursed him to have an ignoble demise, which he did when his body was split in two by being tied to two different trees that were shaken in the wind. Okay. Anyway. Apparently, he got divorced too at some point. Bar Hadaya, boy la gita. He wanted to bring a divorce. Also, the comedy of Achi. Achi, he came in front of Rav Achi to have a Mamuna Agiti because Rav Achi was an expert on divorces. So Bar Hedya here was serving as a messenger. Amalei, so he said to him, Tzarech atalamayid al kol ois v'ois. So Rav Ami, who was in charge of the divorces, and again, to be in charge of divorces, you really have to know halacha very well, because you have to make sure that divorces are kosher according to all opinions always. You never ever have a questionable divorce.
So just the Deoite was you sitting there from your house, right?
The right says you write a document and
Write
send
a
it from
document and send it from your house. And then the rabbinical is just how the document's supposed to be. This is the
So we'll see. Some of those are rabbinical, some of those are biblical.
some of biblical. Okay.
Let's
Like
go.
it seems like a tough
It's got-
category to throw somebody into. It makes sense why the rabbis are so stringent about it.
Yeah, so we'll see that there's certain parts of divorce are biblical, certain parts are rabbinical. We'll discuss what the difference is and how some of the rabbis were stricter than others in terms of the rabbinical categories. Okay. So Rav Achi says, look, you're going to be a messenger, and you're going to have to say b'fanei nechtav and b'fanei nechtam. In order for you to make a claim that you b'fanei in front of me nechtav it was written, you have to be in front of me when I write the document, and you have to be in front of me when the document is signed. So I guess Bar Hedya was suspicious of this, and also commander of Amir Vasi. So he went in front of the rabbis, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi. Amrilay, and he said to them, I'm sorry, Amrilay, they said to him, Lo tzrichas, you don't need to stand there for the entire writing of the document. And if you'll tell me, Eved l'chumra, I'm going to be machmir, and I'll be there the entire time. Nimtzat meitzilaz, I'll get to know Rishonim. You're going to, your people will say that earlier divorces were invalid because the messenger wasn't there the whole time. He was just there for a little bit of the time. So it's not necessary for you to be the entire time. What is necessary? We'll see in a moment. Rav Rachana, I see Gita. Rav Rachana carried a divorce. Paga echtav kamei, paga lo echtav kamei. He saw half the document being written. Also, like a major Rabbi Lazar. He went in front of Rabbi Lazar. Amalei, Rabbi Lazar says to him, "I feel like shuv ein tzarich." If you witness the writing of a single line that was written l'shma, that's sufficient to say it was written in front of me. It doesn't have to be the entire document that's written. One line suffices. Rashi says, "Afilu kan kulmas of kan megalosa." Even if he didn't actually witness the writing, but he was downstairs, and if you're a sefer writing, it can be a little scratchy sometimes, especially before the advent of modern cloth. The sefer who wrote an older cloth used to say it's like writing with ink on a floor tile. Extremely difficult. Modern cloth is this we make it the area is surfaced in a way the ink sort of sticks to it. It's not as painful. But you're a guy scratching away at the cloth, at the parchment, that's sufficient. And you can make a statement of a funny nechtav, of a funny nechtam. Okay, we'll stop here.
Nice.